The United States Surgeon General recently declared loneliness a public health epidemic. 1 in 4 adults report feeling completely disconnected from the people around them. But then there's you. You didn't drift away from people. You made a decision. You looked at certain relationships, weighed what they were costing you, and quietly walked away. And here's the part that confuses everyone around you: you don't feel lonely. You feel lighter. You feel like yourself again. So what's actually happening inside the mind of someone who cuts people off? Is it damage? Is it wisdom? Is it both? Today we're going to explore the psychology behind this pattern, because the answer is more nuanced and more fascinating than most people assume. Most people who reach this point didn't start out guarded. Quite the opposite. There's often a history of being the dependable one, the friend who answered at midnight, the family member who absorbed everyone else's tension, the partner who gave more than they received. You were available. You were patient. You were consistent. And for a long time, that felt like strength. But emotional resources, like physical ones, are finite. And when they're drawn on repeatedly, without being replenished, when the same conversations loop endlessly, when your advice is ignored and the same crisis returns, when your presence is needed but your needs remain invisible, something in the nervous system eventually responds, not with anger, with withdrawal. This isn't a personality flaw. It has a neurological name. Dr. Stephen Porges, a neuroscientist at Indiana University, developed what's known as Polyvagal Theory, a framework for understanding how the autonomic nervous system responds to perceived safety and threat. According to this theory, the nervous system operates across a hierarchy of states. When we feel safe, we engage socially, we connect, communicate, collaborate. But when the nervous system has registered too many experiences of being drained, dismissed, or destabilized by other people, it can shift into what Porges calls the dorsal vagal response, a state of conservation and withdrawal. This isn't a conscious choice. It's a protective reflex. Your nervous system, having learned that certain kinds of closeness come at a cost, begins to treat social engagement itself as a potential threat. And it responds accordingly by pulling back, quieting down, and creating distance. You're not being cold. Your nervous system is being cautious. For many people, this protective wiring didn't develop in adulthood. It was built much earlier. Psychiatrist Murray Bowen, one of the pioneers of family systems theory, described a phenomenon he called emotional cutoff, a pattern that often originates in childhood when a person learns that closeness and unpredictability are packaged together. When a parent's mood is volatile, when love feels conditional, when the emotional temperature of a home shifts without warning, children adapt. They become skilled at reading rooms. They learn to anticipate tension before it surfaces. And they discover, often very young, that solitude is safer than proximity. That adaptation was intelligent. It was survival. The difficulty is that the same wiring that protected you as a child doesn't automatically update when you become an adult. The blueprint remains. And so when relationships in your adult life begin to echo those early dynamics, the unpredictability, the one-sidedness, the feeling of giving without return, your nervous system recognizes the pattern and responds the same way it always has, with distance. Here's where the psychology gets important, because not all withdrawal is the same, and the difference matters enormously for your long-term well-being. Walls are built from fear. They block indiscriminately the harmful and the nourishing alike. They're a response to past pain that prevents future connection, even when that connection would be genuinely safe. Boundaries are built from self-awareness. They're selective. They distinguish between relationships that deplete and relationships that restore. They're not a rejection of connection, they're a curation of it. The CDC reports that prolonged social isolation, true isolation, increases the risk of cardiovascular disease by 29% and stroke by 32%. The research is clear. Human beings need connection to thrive physically, not just emotionally. But here's what that research doesn't always account for. The chronic stress of being surrounded by the wrong people is itself a physiological burden. Cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, remains elevated in relationships characterized by unpredictability, conflict, and emotional imbalance. The damage isn't only caused by too little connection. It can also be caused by the wrong kind. So the question isn't whether to let people in. The question is, which people deserve access to your nervous system's sense of safety? There's something worth understanding about the perceptiveness that often develops in people with this pattern. A 2023 study published in Nature Neuroscience found that individuals who experienced early emotional stress showed heightened activity in the brain's threat detection regions, specifically the amygdala and associated networks. Researchers at the University of Iowa have similarly shown that the prefrontal cortex, responsible for complex social reasoning, develops differently in people who grew up navigating emotionally unpredictable environments. The result, a finely tuned social radar. You notice inconsistencies in behavior before most people do. You recognize when someone's words and patterns don't align. You can sense when a dynamic is shifting long before it becomes explicit. This isn't paranoia. It isn't hypersensitivity. It's the product of thousands of hours spent learning to read environments that required it. When that system flags a relationship as draining, dismissive, or unsafe, you've learned to listen. And more often than not, the data it's working with is sound. There's a word society uses for people who withdraw from relationships: isolated, antisocial, closed off. The language implies deficiency, something missing, something broken. But psychology actually draws a meaningful distinction between two very different experiences. Loneliness is the painful absence of connection you desire. It's the ache of wanting to be seen and finding no one there. Solitude is the chosen presence of your own company. It's quiet that feels like relief rather than absence. Research consistently shows that these two states have entirely different physiological and psychological profiles. Loneliness activates threat responses and correlates with poor health outcomes. Solitude, when chosen, is associated with greater emotional regulation, creativity, and self-awareness. If your phone is quiet and that quietness feels like peace, that's not isolation, that's recovery. What the research says about quality over quantity. Harvard's landmark study of adult development, one of the longest-running studies on human happiness in scientific history, spanning over 75 years, arrived at a conclusion that's worth sitting with. The size of your social circle is not what determines well-being. The quality of your closest relationships is. People with a small number of deeply trusting, genuinely reciprocal connections reported higher life satisfaction, better physical health, and sharper cognitive function into old age than people with large but shallow social networks. If your circle is small but honest, if the people in it actually see you, not a version of you, they've decided to need, you're not doing it wrong. You're doing what the data supports. Understanding this pattern is the beginning of something important, because awareness allows for choice in a way that automatic behavior never does. If you've built walls rather than boundaries, that's worth examining. Not with judgment, but with curiosity. The same nervous system that learned to protect you can gradually learn that not every form of closeness is a threat with the right people, in the right conditions, at a pace that feels safe. And if you've built genuine boundaries, if you've made deliberate, self-aware decisions about who deserves access to your energy and your peace, then what you've done isn't damage. It's discernment. It's one of the quieter, more underrated forms of emotional intelligence. You are not cold. You are not incapable of connection. You are someone who learned, perhaps earlier than you should have had to, that your energy is worth protecting. The goal isn't to never let anyone in. The goal is to let in the people worth letting in, and to stop apologizing for knowing the difference. That's the psychology behind why some people cut everyone off and why, more often than not, it makes complete sense. If you found this useful, subscribe to Psychology Explained for more breakdowns of the science behind how and why we think, feel, and behave the way we do.